All right, greetings and welcome to the first episode of the Fifth Horseman, where we're going to cover the ongoing societal collapse we deserve. On this channel, we're going to get into things like news articles, developing stories, overall societal decay, the kind of stuff you want to talk about but can't because of HR. That said, let's get into it before they take away our internet connection. Off with a trending story about bricks and minifigs and their seemingly eternal crusade against YouTuber Reckless Ben. If you don't know the story, everyone's covered it. I'm already behind the curve, but in general, an individual with a consignment deal with the former owner of a franchise, $100,000, $200,000 worth of Star Wars Legos, something like that. The franchise became insolvent without all of those Legos being sold per the consignment deal. The new owners essentially had access to the unsold portion of the Legos, but either didn't believe the original individual's consignment deal or were essentially trying to steal the Legos from him in order to make a quick, six-figure profit. So that owner reaches out to Reckless Ben, who essentially is brought into the mix, trying to figure out what's going on. And obviously, it's making good content for his channel, and a host of legal issues ensue. The problem is that while Reckless Ben was trying to pursue these leads and find out if they had the Legos, were they willing to give them over if they did, the franchise owners and seemingly the weird twisty mustache beta male CEO essentially ended up using the local police department in order to, I guess, scare Reckless Ben. It's very mafia style moves that they've been pulling if you've seen some of the videos. But essentially they try to get him to back out of the lawsuit. They tried to scare him literally through leaked video, quote, scare him during pretextual traffic stops. They had shoddy arrest warrants to try to search for stolen property after someone alleged that Ben actually had the stolen Legos. And then when they executed a way over the top raid on that property, which essentially was an Airbnb, they found none of that stolen property because why would they? However, they proceeded to make completely invalid arrests on several of the individuals there, including Ben. I don't really know where this is going, but I think the community around that department who pays their bills will likely end up fronting the bill if and when Ben sues the police department. And he'd be foolish not to at this point. I know that because it's in Utah, there's some possible local Mormon connection, and the owner of the Airbnb seemingly had some history with the department as well. So there's definitely something sketchy going on here. But really, like, the big theme here is when someone using those connections, they're basically have local influence, and they're using the police department to execute their will. That just erodes the trust with law enforcement and local institutions that, is already at rock bottom in our society. I'm not sure if we're closer to something like a new Hollywood movie, or if people there are just going to end up more closely supporting vigilantism. But either way, I'll include some links below to the civil rights lawyer. He definitely went into way better detail about the case than I could. So I'll include those in the description down below. Outside the internet drama sphere, we have the peak degeneracy going on in the Iran conflict, where the Mushroom Kingdom continues to LARP as a regional power, which is pretty annoying since the Donald could mushroom cloud them to the point of using the pronouns was, were. But regardless, here we are. This one's been too close to call until this past week when apparently the shittiest of deals seems to have been signed, where on top of going back to the way things were before the war, Iran is also getting obscene amounts of cash for reparations for all the damage caused to their infrastructure. From what I can tell, that's pretty much it. They won't be cutting back funding or involvement with their nerd proxy militias, Hamas, Hezbollah. They won't curtail their missile program, just more of the same, which is beyond annoying given how they continue to suck as a country and a major regional annoyance to anyone who just wants normalcy for once. Since I like to shout out channels that provide extremely deep dives when it comes to geopolitics, S2 Underground, link below in the description, is my go-to when it comes to pretty much spectrum level insights. He covers everything domestic and international in short form and sometimes in longer form when necessary. So make sure you check him out and give him a shout on his channel. While we're skirting the issue of politics, why not get into some more controversy and wrap up today's update by jumping into the completely predictable outcome of the Carmelo Anthony case. While the comically useless UK police you guys have heard about are pretty much big fans of letting migrants stab innocent people at will, which is a different story I'll cover later, here in the US it's still illegal to stab someone simply because of more racism. The guilty verdict for the future engineer or scholar, Carmelo Anthony, shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone who still subscribes to the rule of law. But despite this, the usual suspects are milling about outside the courthouse after the verdict. I think their main goal at this point is to keep the airbrush t-shirt business running. Trying to sound like modern versions of Martin Luther King out there too, if you've seen some of the footage. The fact is, the fatigue is set in with people who are sick of making excuses for, pretty much fatherless, degenerate activity. I think it was a pretty clear-cut case, and now that some of that video footage has leaked, it's even more so. I don't think there's going to be a lot of mass violent protests like you had back during the Summer of Love here. But that said, you have to be exposed to that decay if you live in or near any kind of urban center. And if you do, and for those of you who are commuting in and around that, or through that, I should say, I might make a video series about preparedness, how to conduct a threat survey, things like that, for your daily commute. So if there's some interest in that, feel free to put that in a comment below. I'm working on something else now along that vein, but we could also make it into a series. All right, guys, that wraps up today's sit rep. This is a new channel, obviously. I want to cover more content like this and provide my take on things. I hope you'll stay with me while I experiment with different formats and news, and feel free to like and do all the things down below. And I'll see you guys next time. And remember, they already hate you, so train like it and profit from the decline.